Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. Today we're going to talk about sex, the big sex. See, I'm working on this article which is about the concept of love and romance throughout history. It's turning out to be rather difficult. It goes everywhere from Genghis Khan to Pride and Prejudice to Tinder, etc. So I thought, in the meantime, let me just record a little bit about sex. I've got the article here in the show notes. There's a link if you'd like to check it out. Or just keep listening. Let's talk about sex. So, first, a little personal story. My second week in Madrid, this was many years ago, I took a walk in Casa de Campo, Europe's largest urban park, if I remember correctly. As I wandered between the ancient oak trees, suddenly an old man appeared, a typical Spanish grandfather with a green coat and a flat cap. He even had a cane, if I remember correctly. ¿Quieres que te haga una mamada? He asked. I was, like I said, new in town, and I had no idea what a mamada was. I assumed he was just being polite somehow. Maybe I looked lost, but I just gave him a confused stare. So he rephrased the question. ¿Quieres que te la chupe? Ah, okay. I knew the word chupar, at least. Turns out, Grandpa wanted to blow me. He probably wasn't your grandpa. I mean, I have no real proof that he wasn't your grandpa, but he probably statistically was not your grandpa. He definitely wasn't my grandpa, but somebody's grandpa. Wanted to have oral sex with me in the park. It was almost my first sexual experience in Spain. Geriatric fellatio in Casa de Campo. I say almost because I politely declined. Nice of the old guy to offer, though. Anyway, the time has come to talk about sex in Spain. Buckle up, we are in for a wild ride. First up, sex in public. It's a thing. Public sex isn't limited to granddads offering favors in the park. Years ago, I was hiking in Valle de Lozoya, a beautiful valley in the mountains north of Madrid. Walking along the river, I caught a glimpse of flesh in the distance. Check it out, I said to my girlfriend. Some guy's just standing there naked. I thought it was just one eccentric out tanning his ding-dong on a summer afternoon. But 100 meters further along, there was another. Some middle-aged guy standing up on a boulder, buck naked and sunning his wang. 2 more naked guys later, my girlfriend suggested we take our walk somewhere else. Either we'd stumbled onto a very remote nudist riverbank, or the guys were looking for love. Is actual sex in public common? I'm not sure. But in researching this article, I found quite an interesting report about dogging in Spain. Link on the blog, in the show notes. Apparently, there are some very active websites dedicated to sex in public spaces. You can check out mispicaderos.com for all your needs. Users there share advice on how and where to have sex in bathrooms, public parks, cars, and more. Schedules for sexual activity, lighting, where to have sex with complete strangers, information about parking, and what to wear to signal that you're looking for a good time. Scrolling around, I found out that just down the street from home, I have a park that turns into a swingers orgy after midnight. I'm shocked. I guess that's what I miss by going to bed early. The website also has info about where to sneak a private moment on university campuses, in office buildings, at your local Burger King, and more. I guess in a country where many people live with their parents until their mid-30s, It's no surprise that the youngsters have to get creative to get funky. And oldsters, well, they want to have fun too. Another big topic is prostitution in Spain. I did an episode about this previously. You can look around for it. It's episode 27, called Spain's Prostitution Debate. Because it turns out prostitution isn't actually illegal in Spain. It's not exactly legal, not exactly illegal. Apparently, it exists in a sort of gray area which isn't covered by any existing laws. But as the other episode 27, goes into, that is a cause for debate among Spanish politicians. Anyway, currently, in 2023, sex trafficking and pimping are illegal, but the act of prostitution itself is technically permitted. In my old neighborhood in Madrid, Tetuan, we had quite a few brothels, as well as girls working on street corners and people putting flyers on cars for one service or another. Erotic massage, saunas where God knows what goes on, women of various nationalities offering various sex acts, etc. Here in Barcelona, I'm not really sure where the hot spots are, but I guess they exist. Like I said, I'm an old guy now. I go to bed early. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. So I don't really know. But prostitution is pretty common. According to the reports, 39% of Spanish men have gone to a prostitute at some point. Prostitution is a significant part of the Spanish GDP, so much so that the government once suggested they might start counting it officially, in order to make the economic data look better. Estimates say there are around 300,000 prostitutes in Spain, but of course that varies according to who you ask. I originally wasn't sure if the younger generations were doing it as well. The guys I know who have talked about their hookers and blow days were mostly older. But when I did research for the article about prostitution, I found a report saying that the clientele for brothels was actually getting younger. And by the way, that number, 39% of men who have gone to a prostitute at some point, is well above the rates of other European countries. Even in the Netherlands, famous for its sex tourism and regulating rather than abolishing prostitution, men are less likely to pay for sex. I do remember that back in the day when El País had classified ads, about 80% of them were for prostitutes. Starting at 30 euros, you could do pretty much anything. Have prices gone up since then? Or, like everyone's salaries, have they stayed depressingly low? I'm not sure, but I bet you could find out on your own if that's your thing. Here's another big issue. Do Spanish men have small penises? Okay, maybe I should say another small issue. You can find some articles out there claiming that Spanish men are among the world's best lovers. But in my research, I also found data saying that Spanish men had some of the smallest penises in Europe. Is it true? I don't know. Years ago, I used to go to a gym for martial arts. I'd see dozens of Spanish penises every day in the locker room. Most of them didn't strike me as particularly small. Also, quick tip on locker room etiquette. Don't stare at other dudes' junk. In any case, I guess the size of the flaccid member doesn't say much about the size of the erect one. Perhaps some reader who's more intimately acquainted with Spanish manhood can leave a comment about this. In any case, most of the penis size data out there is self-reported, and I'm packing 24 centimeters in case anybody's wondering. Then there's another big question. Who's having the best sex in Spain? This burning question needs to be addressed. Who are the best lovers among Spanish regions? And who's having the most sex? Well, I'm not sure how you'd establish statistically who's better in bed. You could set up a study in which people have sex with residents of all 17 comunidades autónomas, plus Ceuta and Melilla, under controlled conditions in a laboratory, I mean, in theory you could, but that would probably be pretty hard to get funding for. Until somebody does that study, it seems like any data of this type must be purely anecdotal. So I got with this chick from Aragon one time, and let me tell you, chicks from Aragon. I don't believe in that kind of thing. I've personally written in an article about Spanish stereotypes, also a podcast here, I think it's episode 2 or something like that I'm not exactly convinced by the idea that Spanish people are all passionate lovers. In any case, a recent study done by a condom manufacturer says that people from Andalusia are Spain's best lovers. How did they come to that conclusion? I have no idea. Now, if we're talking about frequency of intercourse, it's Cantabria and the islands, both Canaries and Balearic Islands, that top the list. In any case, Salon.com lists Spain as one of the top 10 countries in the world where people are the most sexually satisfied. Sounds pretty good to me. Also worth mentioning, people from La Rioja buy a lot of anal beads. The online sex toy shop amantes.net says so. I wouldn't know. Finally, some stats on sexual infidelity in Spain. Are Spaniards a bunch of big cheaters? My friend and famous sex blogger Venus O'Hara says infidelity is rampant in Spain. According to O'Hara, she's almost more surprised when Spanish people say they are faithful. She chalks it up to the importance of family and the relative infrequency of divorce. Better to keep the family together, even if it means getting some action on the side now and then. And the data says that anywhere from 30 to 80% of Spaniards have been unfaithful to their partner. In fact, according to Ashley Madison, a dating site for married people, Spain is the most unfaithful country in Europe. Venus O'Hara is a friend, by the way, and I learned a lot from her book Inglés para Pervertidos back in the day. Unfortunately, that is now out of print, but you can find her on Twitter. Look for Venus O'Hara, or check out the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast here on Spotify or elsewhere. Anyway, I expect that infidelity data is just as self-reported as penis size is, and so people might be less than honest when asked about their extramarital affairs. But who knows? Most of the guys I've known who have talked about going to prostitutes were married. But is that the same as cheating? Well, not exactly, I guess. Finally, to wrap this up tight, sex in Spain. Almost everybody's doing it. Let's do my usual disclaimer. I know I spend a lot of time generalizing on this blog, but sex is something I try not to generalize about too much. It's just too personal and too variable. Also, I have a feeling almost everyone is lying. Even if it's in the interest of science, a question like, how likely are you to cheat on your husband or wife, is going to be tough to answer honestly for most people. And don't even get me started on those guys who spend a week in Thailand and now claim to be experts on Asian women. I'm actually married to an Asian woman at this point, and I have drawn no conclusions about Asian women from this, but that doesn't stop guys from coming back from a brief stint somewhere out there and saying, oh, you know, the thing about Asian women is blah, blah, blah. So that's why I've tried to make this article about data, even if I don't necessarily believe all of it, and my personal experiences, limited as they are. In fact, I did see some people having sex in a park one time. It was about my second month in Madrid, a very long time ago, as we know, when I lived in Lucero. It was the middle of the day, but it was ridiculously cold out, and there were 4 young people getting their freak on in the park. The 2 girls had pulled up their miniskirts and pulled down their tights, and they were riding some dudes in puffy jackets and baseball caps, cowgirl style. I just wanted to get to wherever I was going, and I ignored them. My hands were freezing, and I didn't care who wanted to show their ass in some park in Las Afueras. Welcome to Spain, I thought. Now when am I going to get some action? For the answer to that question, you'll just have to read my classic article about dating Spanish girls. It's also a podcast. Episode 8. You could also head by the link in the show notes to the article called Sex, Booze, and Phrasal Verbs. It's about my life in Madrid. I was an English teacher for a long time. That's where the phrasal verbs came from. Anyway, personally, I appreciate the beauty of Spanish women quite a bit. And I found that people here can be pretty open about sexual matters. But I felt totally vanilla after researching this article. I walked around the barrio afterwards, looking at people on the streets, wondering how many of these perfectly normal-looking citizens are into stuff I'd consider to be pretty wild. Is that guy at the bus stop taking his wife to a swingers party in some dark parking lot later tonight? Is the girl working at the bank sneaking off on her breaks to write reviews of the best Burger King bathrooms to have sex in? Are the abuelas secretly fantasizing about their extramarital affairs and their anal beads while standing in line at the fishmongers? I may never know. I don't usually stop total strangers to ask. Anyway, I'm wishing you all a satisfying sex life, and until next time, I'm Mr. Chorizo. Talk soon. Quick outro here. Let's do another disclaimer. I guess I should say that all of the activities mentioned in this article are practiced around the world in one way or another. Marital infidelity is not exclusively Spanish, obviously. Dogging was invented in the UK, although I'm sure that the Greeks and Romans were fucking in parks long before your Aunt Mildred from Birmingham was born. And there were people buying anal beads in feudal Japan. Prostitution is called the oldest profession, although horticulturalists and cattle drovers are claiming to be even older. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think. Head by the blog, expatmadrid.com, and send me a message using the contact form. Give me all the hot, sweaty details. While you're there, check out some of my other articles. I've got quite a bit about all things Spain. You could also go to expatmadrid.com/donate to send some money my way. I appreciate every euro or dollar you send helps. You can buy me a virtual coffee there. That is expatmadrid.com/donate. You could also give me a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I appreciate those things a lot. You could buy one of my books on Amazon, although they are for people who are learning English. If you've gotten this far, I assume you know enough English that you don't need my books. Maybe buy a few copies for some friends. That's all I've got for today. I hope you're doing great wherever you are. Until next time, from beautiful Barcelona. Hasta la próxima.